Well, Bill, I'm not starting with our regular intro that you usually start because that's going to come in a moment. It's a new year and we have to get some information out to the folks.
It is. This is where you and I stick our heads out from behind the picket fence as like little scamps and go, "Hey, everybody.
Howdy, neighbor.
Guess what's going on over here?"
Yeah, big news. So there's a lot of things I think we've learned, we've loved, we've grown on Bill and Rob's An Excellent Adventure, and we've acquired, I think, is the next thing that is appropriate to say here. But
that's a nice, healthy word to use for what we do. Yeah, acquire.
We've got a new series coming up, and it's your turn. You got to choose the new series. Do you want to tell people what's going to be popping up in the feed, the Patreon feed? This is a public episode, but on the Patreon, I believe in just a days. I won't tell everyone how many days, but
so yeah, I have decided for my next series pick, I am doing a series, and we're calling it Lady Killers, and these are movies with basically female leads, primarily a lot of action and crime movies. There's a lot of those movies that I've been thinking about for a while that I've wanted to go back and watch again, and I'm like, there's a theme here, and
we love a theme.
This was the time. So yeah, we're going to start out with a post-apocalyptic classic. I'll go ahead and tell everybody what that is right now. We're going to watch 1996's Barbed Wire with then Pamela Anderson Lee. This is a movie I saw a long time ago, and people know about it, but I remember getting a kick out of it. I don't know if the kick will still be there, and that's part of the reason why we watch these movies. So that's going to be the series we go with. We're going to have about 6 of those, and it's going to be some stuff from several different decades. So maybe a couple of classics, and hopefully a couple you haven't seen before, and one martial arts movie that I'm particularly interested in watching. I've been trying to get to for a while, and this let me put everything I've been wanting to see with these lady-driven movies in one nice little package. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
That's awesome. I'm so excited. So, of course, everyone, if you're new to Bill and Rob's An Excellent Adventure, you're going to want to check out the Bill and Rob's Patreon, because that's where you're going to get everything we've ever done behind the paywall and then some. So
think of it as those old Time Life commercials where they go, you get the whole series of this, and as a special bonus, you get all this other stuff off to the side. And so you do. It's nice to have everything. Yeah. Some people are there. You got to have it all. So we encourage you to have it all when it comes to Bill and Rob's, and go to that Patreon and just binge yourself silly on the nonsense that we put out there.
Well, and Bill, that Time Life commercial, but wait, there's more. Is what I was about to say, but wait, there's more. Now, some people who listen to this podcast are also subscribers to Pumpkin Spice Podcast, and I get that.
Right. As they should be.
Pumpkin Spice Podcast has gone through many iterations. We brought it back last year as a monthly show, just having fun, me and my buddy Graham talking about horror movies that Graham picks. Well, Graham and I missed one thing that we used to do, and that was the once a year covering one horror franchise, kind of in the vein of what you and I do, but the Chucky series, the Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, just around the pumpkin spice season. We just did these monthly episodes, and it was great, but that was the piece that was missing. So you and I got together and we're like, hey, we should invite Graham onto the Bill and Rob's turnip truck. And so we have. And that means that Pumpkin Spice Podcast will continue to do the monthly episodes on the Bill and Rob's Patreon. Graham might sit in on some Bill and Rob's episodes, which listeners have heard him on before. Bill might sit on a few Pumpkin Spice episodes if he's feeling particularly spooky that week.
And he will.
And then, additionally, we're going to do a autumnal spooky franchise, and that'll be out to the public like we used to do. So, of course, as always, behind the paywall is where you're going to get absolutely everything at patreon.com/BillAndRobs. It helps us. It helps Rob Adler, who has put in so much work on this podcast just because he believes in it. And, you know, it helps you and I. It lets us know that you dig what we're doing. So you get video episodes, you get audio episodes. They're all ad-free. You get everything behind the paywall. And we really hope you check it out.
Absolutely, because one thing that's been common through all your iterations is the show's been great, especially if you are a horror movie fan or want to get into the horror movie stuff or just off to the side tangentially like I was. That was not a genre that I was well versed in and not something that I at the time had a particular interest in deep diving in, but I like doing the stuff with you. So it's been great. And that show is awesome if you like and love horror movies.
I like everything that is in the Bill and Rob's universe. Pumpkin Spice, Bill and Rob's An Excellent Adventure, and it's just more bang for the buck. We're not raising the price either. It's $5. You can join the Patreon for $5, and you get all of this and more.
Yeah,
actually, that's
certainly less than a cruise.
Sure,
certainly less than a trip abroad. You can take a little trip with us to the virtual VHS store in our brains every week, and it's not a lot to pony up for it either. It's actually pretty sure that's going to be way less than the cost of a streaming service or actually buying a movie these days. So we just have a good time. It's great. And as always, this is friends getting together to talk about the movies and things they love, whether the movies were good or bad. And that's part of the fun. So please do check it out. And if you do like the show and support us, please continue to share the word. Any chance you get in any circles you think they might like it. So the more people hear about it, the more people will check it out. And someday Rob and I will quit all of our jobs and we'll do this full time.
That is the dream. Bill, I did the math when we were scheduling out this year. I think we're adding one more series to the year than we did last year. So we're able to give people even more. I love it.
Oh, no. We're going to have to watch more movies together and laugh about it? Gah.
So we appreciate everyone who's already supporting at patreon.com/BillAndRobs, but we also appreciate anyone who just spreads the good word with the free episodes. Appreciate you listening now. Like Bill always said, we don't have fans, we have friends. And then we have Friends Premium over at patreon.com/BillAndRobs.
Yeah. I guess you can buy your way into the friend circle, but you never really seen that where it wasn't a friend to start with. Yeah. So I'm willing to take that chance.
You know what's cool about the Patreon, and this is this is my final thought, but the episode that's about to play is Ladyhawke, and it was with our guest is our very first patron. Now we talk about it in the episode, but I think that's just great, and I love the opportunity. Now is the time before we exponentially explode in the Patreon-averse, that if you get in, you can suggest a movie and then come on the show.
That tagline is not just me throwing something out there because it's catchy. It's true. Nobody listens to us that isn't a friend of ours. And hey, if you got good stuff, you're probably a fan. We just like the conversations. You don't have to be a special person. You don't have to be a known celebrity. We've had guests who are well known, but we are fully down for talking to a friend with a good suggestion.
Love it.
And I think that's part of the great appeal of us versus a lot of other places. You can't get quite that close to the conversation. And here you can.
You can touch the stove at Bill and Rob's.
You can. You can peek behind the kimono at your own risk if you really want to.
Oh, well, Bill, should we send this intro off into the oblivion and start today's episode?
I think we should send this off not with a curse, but with a wonderful magical push into this movie and let it fly.
Pressing the synthesizer arpeggio button now.
Welcome to Bill and Rob's, an excellent adventure. I'm Bill Tilley.
And I'm Rob Schulte. Bill, today is a big day. It's a fantastical day, really. A fantastical episode. Everyone's terrific. We're soaring through these episodes like a hawk in the sky or a wolf on the ground, because right now we've got a guest, and we've had guests before. Like this is not uncommon. Recently we had Adam Ragusa. We had the boys from Dr. DC. But today we have our very first patron, probably the biggest supporter of this podcast. And this is the thing, people. You too can tell us, I want you to cover a movie, and then also sit in the hot seat and talk about that movie with us if you support the show on Patreon at patreon.com/BillAndRobs. Today, our friend John, a.k.a. Cursor in the Discord, is here. Hi, John.
Hey, thank you so much for having me here. I have heard you guys say that when you're a fan, you're also like a friend, and I really felt that when you invited me on. I really appreciate that, so thank you so much.
I can't take credit for that, but I also co-sign that. That is Bill's patented phrase.
It's on the back of the shirt I'm wearing right now for those listeners who are watching at home.
Uh-huh. If you want one of those shirts, available. You got to let us know. And we will hand tick them. Isn't that with like Crest's hand ticking? We will do that and bring it over to you. Deliver it.
Instead of an alligator, will we just stitch a small hawk and wolf over each one of them and send them out that way? That'd be great. It is great to have you here, John. It's wonderful to have a guest who not only wants to be here, but actually supports us on the other end of the show instead of us having to do a little bit of begging sometimes, which is nice. Now, we love all our guests, but it's great to see you. We've exchanged words back and forth, so it's always fun to actually talk to somebody and hear their voice when you're talking about these movies, because that's the whole point of the show. So welcome aboard.
Thank you so much.
John, this has been a long time coming, because I believe it's been almost a year since you were like, if you guys did Ladyhawke, I'd love to hear you all talk about it. And then we finally, like, the stars aligned, the eclipse happened, and we were like, you know what? Let's finally cover this, and let's just have John on. But John, you suggested Ladyhawke and Excalibur, I believe, and we went with Ladyhawke. Right. What is your history with Ladyhawke? Why did you want us to watch this one?
Oh, man. Like, I remember this movie as being an amazing, adventure, a romp. When I was about 12 years old in the summer this came out, and I asked my family, Mom, can I please go to this movie? Can I please? And the answer was no. And I didn't get to see it again until some years later when it was on home box office, and I still loved it. I was always a kid who played Dungeons and Dragons and video games and other nerdy things, and I love that this movie has the introduce you to the heroes, and this is how adventure will play. And I always felt like the script could have come out of somebody's D&D game, like many of the J.J. Abrams movies are supposed to have happened.
I had never seen this movie. I thought it was just a VHS cover I recognized from Blockbuster, right? I mean, how could you not recognize Ladyhawke? But when I watched this truly for the first time for this podcast, I had flashbacks to my uncle's house in Yates Center, Kansas, where he had the satellite dish that went like D4 and moved in the backyard. And he had so many VHS tapes. Like my uncle had only got married late in life. So all of this time, he was just a bachelor, hanging out with everything he could ever want, just living that life into his 40s and such. And I remembered I just loved going over there because I could just go through all of these VHS tapes and movies I had never heard of and movies I had heard of. And I had free reign when we stayed over there because Yates Center, Kansas, you wouldn't guess it, but not much to do. But then also,
the hell you say?
It's not like going to grandmother's house where it's I guess we're gonna play that checkers, but with the marbles, and sit around and eat scones. Like this was
It's not like a weekend in Zanesville, Rob.
No, Bill, but a weekend in Zanesville is great because, as we were saying before we started recording, you get to go into the Bill Cave. And the Bill, you know what, everyone, get your head out of the gutter. It's got lots of comic books and toys in the Bill Cave. And I was welcomed there with a sweet treat. Bill's just, come along, Mr. Rob, into my Bill Cave. Anyway, one day, I remember now, a movie was on that involved a wolf and Ferris Bueller and a bird and Catwoman. And I was like, what are they watching? But I arrived after my uncle had already put it on, so I just didn't know what was going on in this movie. And it was the only time I didn't fully see it, but I had just these flashes of this film with animals and medieval times and fantasy. But I finally have now pieced together what that was, and it's Ladyhawke, and I'm glad we watched it. Bill, your history with the Hawk.
I'm realizing that John and I are the same age. I too was 12 in the summer of '85, and it's very interesting when we talk, because you kind of forget that seeing a movie was not a given for us back in those days. Mm-hmm. You know, there weren't a lot of video stores. Most people still didn't own a VCR. I know my parents didn't. They did splurge on the satellite dish as the wave of the future, which of course we all know by the rusting skeletons of so many in the backyards. That's not true. They do make awesome Hot Wheels ramps. Yeah. And if you ride your bike at it the right direction, it will look like the dish of the Millennium Falcon, so you can shoot at it. But yeah, it was interesting because you could ask to see these things, and there were lots of them. You'd see the commercials, but you might not get to see that movie, and it might be years later. And I know I saw this on home box office. So when it finally came out on cable, and we had that through the satellite dish, it was in a decent level of rotation. So, and I have always had an affinity for Rutger Hauer movies, even back in the day, ever since I'd seen him in Blade Runner. And, this movie, I think because when it came on and it had that Alan Parsons soundtrack, which was different than a lot of sword and sorcery type movies, when you first look at them and go, okay, this is clearly knights and magic and something's happening. And that caught my attention, and then I just rolled with it. And it was enough of a movie for a 12-year-old to watch it a few times over the years. I hadn't watched it since. I probably haven't watched this movie in over 20 years.
Whoa.
But it's one of those movies that you don't forget about. There's the ones you watch, there's the ones you watch and forget. Oh God, I have seen that movie. There's ones you never care to watch. And there's that one that just always kind of sits at your memory when you kick a flash of it, or you see this poster come up on eBay or something, like, oh yeah, I remember sitting on the floor and watching this movie. So that's my genesis with Ladyhawke.
Our friends over at Piloting Era just covered Genesis 2, the Gene Roddenberry pilot. Not sure if you guys have
Alex Cord.
Yes. It was a great episode, and they're on our same little collective, the Bridge Burner Collective, so go check that out, everyone. Now, I think it's time we get into the meat of this gamey movie. But Bill, we generally
Robs, are you hungry?
Do
you need a snack? You're getting a lot of eating animal references going on here.
Well, what else is there to do in medieval times, right? It's like eat a good meal or try not to die, right?
Well, you can dig holes.
Yes.
I do know that.
Escape prison.
Yeah. You can go to the stable and work at the stable.
You can
sleep in the stable.
You could be a Catholic bishop that also practices Satanism.
Many questions.
Yeah.
You could ride your horse through the cathedral?
That's true.
I think
you could wear a mask that probably hinders you because you can't see more than helps you from protection.
I did love that POV shot, though.
Yes.
Did you love it? Because I couldn't stand it.
Oh, well, maybe that's going to be in one of our patented segments coming up, Bill.
But yeah, it is interesting that this movie is very denominational and so very non-denominational at the same time. How this guy got to be the big boss, I'm not sure that's how that whole clerical hierarchy works.
Yeah. I'm going to have to consult my local doctrine. Anyway, Bill, we usually read the back of the box here, but you've thrown me for a loop on our little preparation sheet. Can you walk me through what's going on here?
Well, I went down into the cellar that lives below my house where I store all my VHS tapes in a salt mine.
The Bill Cave.
So that
we know that.
So they can't degrade. And I come across two versions of this, and it was striking that they were so different. All hail the back of the box. This is what we used to get into the movie. Is you walk into that store, you're looking, and you do flip it over and read it. And I found that there's the original version, the oldest one I could have, is the short version, I called it. And then there's what I called the long version for this re-release. And I'm just wondering what you guys think about the impact either one of these would have on you. So I'm going to read the short version.
Okay.
And then, Robs, if you'll help me out and then kind of breeze somewhat through this long version.
I will definitely do my best.
And then I just want to get your thoughts on both of them. So here we go. Here's the short version VHS I found. Now, we've all seen this movie, so you need to remember that. This is how you would see it. So, pickpocket Gaston, the mouse, becomes the only man to escape the terrifying dungeons of Aquila alive. For the moment. He joins forces with Navarre, a fugitive warrior, and is entrusted with his steed and his hawk. Together, cunning thief and cursed swordsman must battle supernatural forces to break a spell of fiendish cruelty.
I'm in. I think that right there I'm very excited.
I would be into, even though having watched the movie, we know that's not exactly what this movie's about. But it gets you in the door. It would definitely make me pick it up. Now, Rob, can you kind of tell us your thoughts about this long version?
I'll get through this long one, but then, John, I would like to know your thoughts on how this movie captured you and if either of these would have swayed you one way or the other. So just be thinking about that, preparing for your after back of the box assignment. So, long version. By his wiles and a stroke of luck, diminutive pickpocket Philippe the Mouse Gaston has escaped the vile dungeon fortress of Aquila. Never in his wildest imaginings did he think he would someday break back inside and become the hero of a glorious quest. Based on a 13th century European legend, Ladyhawke is the enchanted story of a porcelain-skinned beauty, a stalwart knight, and the mouse. Once the knight and the lady were lovers. Now the curse of the jealous bishop of Aquila keeps them always together, eternally apart. By day she is a hawk. By night he is a wolf. Desperate to regain the perfect love that once was his, the knight vows to break into the bishop's stronghold and end the evil spell. And only the mouse can help him do it. This luminous, visually stunning film stars Matthew Broderick, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, Project X, that's two separate films, everyone, as Philippe, the ebullient thief who, everyone just knock it off. I don't need to hear the 1-star reviews on how I pronounce that. Thief who, when not snatching purses, steals scene after scene with his hilarious running commentaries to God. Rugged Rutger Hauer, Blade Runner and The Hitcher, and lovely Michelle Pfeiffer, Scarface and The Witches of Eastwick, co-star as the cursed lovers. Movies, says the Ladyhawke director Richard Donner, Superman, The Goonies, and Lethal Weapon, should take people into landscapes, emotional and visual, where they haven't been before. So get ready. Ladyhawke will take you on an unforgettable, enthralling fantasy flight. I did that.
I did double ka, so it's caca.
Yeah. So where are you at on this, John?
Neither of these are really going to get me, if I'm honest. I think the thing that did get me attracted to this film was I was a big Manimal fan.
Ooh, Bill, speaking your language.
Hail Simon McCorkindale.
And this hit that, fantasy, Dungeons, Dragons, and, you've got this, changing into whatever. So I think that's how I got in. But honestly, that long version, I'm with Bill.
Yeah.
Like, that's going to put me to sleep. There's no way that is. Like, what is this written for? Is it like somebody's book report? I don't get it.
It's a lot of puffery.
Yeah.
And it's not necessary. It's clearly a re-release. I think it's a remastered video. And I don't know why Hollywood decided towards these movies that they need to over-explain the plot and give more. I would say I like the short version. I always like the nut graph, tagline on the poster. That's what gets you. If they had just transplanted she is a hawk, he is a wolf part into that, because they don't mention Michelle Pfeiffer's Isabeau at all in the short version. If they just put that in there and could have left the rest of it, I think the short version is perfect.
Well,
it's enough.
I hear you. I say leave the hawk and wolf part out, because that's actually a really great surprise in the film. You don't know that going into it. And it's really easy to tell, to start to pick up on I think Michelle Pfeiffer is the hawk, but the wolf part, not so much, right? That's like the extra little oomph with Rutger Hauer being the wolf. So I'm with you. I think the shorter one, definitely give it a little bit more pizzazz, but the longer one sucks because it gives you pretty much the whole story. Because it's a fantasy tale in the 80s, you also already are assuming it's going to have a happy ending. So if you're giving me everything but the happy ending, well, you get your heads out of the gutter, everyone. But it leaves little to the imagination for the movie.
Agreed. I think you've turned me on that, Rob. I do like that part. Imagine if, she could have been the steed. We don't know. What a swerve that would have been.
It would have been. She could have been Imperious.
Yeah.
Right?
But this long version reads like somebody just took the press packet and jammed it on the back of the box.
That's true.
I love a short back of the box. It just gets you right in there and says, go for it. Yeah. This long, super duper, something that John Houseman would read for the audiobook, I could do without. So boo for the newer version, yay for the older.
Well, should we get into our segments?
Absolutely. I think we should fly on into one of these and just start pecking away at it. A majestic bird of prey.
What do we have first, Bill? You named all of these.
I did. We're going to do a section called Legend Has It, and this is where we pull some fun facts that we learned about Ladyhawke. I managed to actually find some old videos on YouTube, some press videos. Oddly enough, none from Matthew Broderick, but Pfeiffer and Hauer and Donner, and I had now seen a lot of Richard Donner stuff, so it was interesting to see the man talking about this movie. And he said that he'd picked this location, which this movie shot in Italy. They'd gone to other places around the world, tried all the other standard medieval fare, and nothing was working for him. But he fell in love with Italy, and the thing he liked about it the best was it had a lot of this architecture that wasn't surrounded by a lot of modern construction. He could get certain views that he couldn't get in other places, and everything looked a little better. I think it was interesting. He called it other places like Spain and England. Of course, they have castles and keeps, he said, but they're not kept up in the sense as they'll keep the castle, but they'll build the canning factory around it. So, you go 1 degree to the left and there's the shipping port, and 1 degree to the right, and there's the pharmacy and City Hall staying off to the side. But this one, he managed to do it. But even though he found these places, he had to splice locations, which Hollywood's known for doing, shoot your exterior here, interior. But he said they used 3 castles in all, one for the moat, one for the exterior, and one where the castle, which is the interior, where the bishop's bedroom, which, side note, the bishop's bedroom appears to be accessible to anybody and open straight from the mid-court.
Hey.
I found very interesting for a man who apparently is so evil and closed off. Not a problem, him taking meetings and phone calls right there.
I got the sense that was a really high traffic area.
Yeah.
It is. They ride a horse into it. and jump off and turn left, and he opens the doors, and there's his bed.
If he was on Seinfeld, he would definitely have the reverse peephole, I think.
I wonder, like, my wife complains about the road noise in our house. It's like, can you imagine trying to sell this on House Flippers? This is not going to fly. But I guess the castle exterior, he said if you wanted to go from the castle exterior to the bishop's bedroom, it was a 3-hour drive. That's how far apart these things were. He said, if you want to shoot there, you want to shoot to see in the bedroom, get up. You got to pack all your stuff up, and you got to go. And you got to go 3 hours down the road. And he said everything was that way. It was all just totally spread out. So it was interesting to see and think about, as hard as it is to shoot a movie, to have to move it that far on this many locations with all of this older architecture that you got to deal with. And I guess apparently the castle that they used with the moat, that they could go across the drawbridge, the one they found that they would actually let them fill the moat, which had not been filled in hundreds of years, but apparently nobody checked it for structural integrity. So when they flooded the moat decided to flood back and took out a big section of it and part of the town that was at the bottom of the hill. So they said they were not fans of his movie making in that particular location.
I was going to say movie magic, but that was like movie black magic. Hello? Is this thing on? It's
on.
All right. Well, let me do mine real quick because I thought this was, hey, maybe it's apocryphal, but I saw it on a couple of different online chat forums. But for Navarre, Donner originally wanted Sean Connery, which, hey, I could see Sean Connery, a younger Sean Connery in this. But I couldn't see him necessarily paired with Michelle Pfeiffer. So they didn't go with Sean Connery. Then Mel Gibson, which, working in Lethal Weapon, Mel Gibson's kind of heyday. This could have worked. Couldn't get Mel. And then they settled on Kurt Russell, who I also feel like could have done well in this role. But Kurt Russell quit after seeing himself in medieval garb and hating what he looked like. Snake Plissken wouldn't dress up like a knight, I guess.
There are a couple of things that I was thinking about, and since Bill has covered some of the filming locations, I'm going to call an audible and switch mine up.
Ooh.
So this is another apocryphal. I like the word you used there. I'm going to steal it.
It's very medieval.
I guess Rutger Hauer told Donner, like, hey, save me a spot for my 55-foot RV. And he drove from Holland. He's Dutch. He drove from Holland all the way down to Italy and brought his custom-made 55-foot RV so that he could have a comfy place to hang out. He was super proud of it.
Love this.
But when he got on set, they were like, "Why?" I don't know. But when you're Rutger Hauer, you kind of get to Rutger Hauer.
Yeah,
I love
you want me for your film as fourth choice, or did you need to send me home in my 55-foot RV? That's great.
I've seen things. I've seen 55-foot RVs on fire off the shores of Orion. For the record, everybody, just so you know, 55 feet is the length of a standard semi-truck with trailer.
That is a large RV, and I love imagining Rutger Hauer driving it himself from Holland to Italy.
That is such a baller move, especially in 1985. Like, anybody could.
Bonk.
Yeah. Please tell me he had a vanity plate. And what happened to this thing?
And of course, the vanity plate said Road Warrior.
I just can't imagine filling that thing up. How do you even get it into a European gas station? And you're paying
how many liters does it take?
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't that bad back then. But
it's all
great.
Relative. They probably were still complaining about the prices of petrol at that point.
I can tell you this. I'm going to be doing some internet searches trying desperately to find a picture of this thing.
Yes, for sure. Well, I'm desperately ready to move on to the next segment, which Bill has titled Wolfed 'em Down. Some things that we liked about the movie, and I'll go first. It's a two-parter because I feel like we can all agree on the first. What is going on? I think we can all agree on the first one. Tune in for the video for that one, folks.
Rob's having his Sweet 16 on camera.
Yeah,
everybody.
exactly. I don't think I've seen sets this good that I wanted to talk about, Bill, since we watched Tim Burton's Planet of the Apes. Like, and that's no joke. Like, these are highly... We talked about filming locations and the, like, 8 castles they used or whatever, but even how they dressed these sets, like, down to every little bit about it, like, I loved watching this. It was great. I've said this before, it was a textured film. It was not just smooth and glossy, and I love that. And then I have to say, and I know this is divisive to a lot of film bros on YouTube, but the Alan Parsons Project soundtrack was fantastic. It was wonderful. And you know why it's wonderful? And yes, did it shock me? Did it make me raise an eyebrow? Absolutely. But by the end of this film, I was like, that's why this stands out more than others, because it's not your swelling strings and your, Braveheart sounding stuff. It is really off-putting, but good in a way that I loved.
I had forgotten the soundtrack to the movie, so when I turned it on your Plex the other night and it swelled up, instantly it came. I was like, oh, that's right. This is the prog rock fantasy movie. And it is something else. I like the music. I don't...
Bill, this is a soundtrack you would put on in your office when you're trying to get work done, and you would dance to it, I'm sure.
100%. I would dance. I would, I'd be down all fours pretending I'm a wolf. Yeah, I'd be doing that.
Close the blinds in the office.
And I've read the divisiveness of it. Donner said this is what he wanted. And he said this movie is, in his words, not a medieval movie. It is a movie dressed in medieval trappings. And he didn't want to make a straight medieval movie. So for that, it works. I think the movie, when the prog rock parts kick in, let the music down because they're not quite as energetic as the music that's playing. And that's something I will get to in a later part that ties that in. But I will say, I like the music. I like that they took a chance. It makes the movie memorable one way or the other. For some people good, some people bad. For me, it's a good one. It's very different. What do you think, John?
Well, I'll get to the music in our next segment. But the things I wolfed down, like the animals, were friggin' amazing. All that work with like stroking the fur, and you've got all these like weird complex props you're carrying around a hawk. I don't know. I thought they were fantastic. The scenes of like the nature with the hawk, like it really took me to a place where I wanted to be. And as I said, I didn't know horses could go up and down stairs in a cathedral. Like, I was riveted. The second thing that I really loved was the impalings, like the sword work, and like you get some throwing and you get some stabbing. Like, it was really in there. Now, it's not very bloody, so if you're sensitive to that sort of a thing, it's not exactly realistic, but it was kind of nice and cartoony in that way. I think for me, the third thing that I just wolfed out, unexpected Alfred Molina, right? Yes. He just kind of came out of nowhere. Like, what? He's in this movie? Oh, and so like the characterizations, I thought all of the folks who were like second tier players were really well cast, and aside from the leads, they actually were what drew me and what kept me in. Particularly, I don't know why they named him this, but Leo McKern as Imperius. Like the camera just loves his craggy face, and he can really like throw down the emotions. That was stellar.
I really loved that character too, and I thought he just brought something to the film that it needed at the time his character was introduced. I think I was getting a little tired of Broderick, but not in like a like I just needed more. So this was a good thing.
Yeah, I'm on board with him too, because I kind of like you, Rob. I like Matthew Broderick in this movie, but there are these weird transition moments where he doesn't quite fit in with what's going on around him. Like sometimes he feels a little modern, a little the way he talks and the way he approaches it, and with his bit of always talking as kind of a narrator to no one. I kept waiting for him to look at the camera and go home. Because he talks so much to himself, which was a little there. But Imperius is just, he's not a cartoon, and that's great. They didn't just create this crazy old man that lives on top of the hill type of bit. He's got a depth to him, and it really comes through when he tells the story, and he shows how much he cares. It really gives this movie someone who knows these two and cements how important and how incredible and how tragic their story is, because he was part of it.
Side note, I don't think it's getting picked up on my mic, but Elvis is snoring really, really hard right now. So
good for him.
Having post-surgery, just got his stitches out. I just figured if anyone does hear a lawnmower or something, no one's mowing their lawn right now. It's my dog's
I'm going to very hard try to not take this as a critique on our conversation.
Yes,
that we put your dog to sleep.
Or the best critique ever, that like he loves the sound of my voice talking into my computer.
He should be in on this. This is a movie with tons of animals in it. Non-CGI'd animals.
Maybe Mrs. Columbo is actually Elvis when I record. Maybe that's when I stop recording, she comes back to be. Anyway, Bill, what did you wolf down?
For me, it's Hauer and Pfeiffer.
Yeah.
They're the part of the movie that makes the movie important to me. They're just such a great couple of actors. Their chemistry is great. Their performances are great. The characters that they play could be played a lot of different ways. They could have been played easily cookie cutter one direction or the other, but both of them had takes on this that they wanted to be. Rutger Hauer says he likes to play characters who are unapproachable because he tries to be that way sometimes in real life. Kind of play hard to want, not hard to get. And that makes him on screen this very rugged, kind of cut from stone kind of person that you would love to see at a time like this in this kind of role. And Michelle Pfeiffer, she did not want to be damsel in distress or just girl on screen. She wanted to have character and show how this woman survived her half-life. What did she do? How did she react to it? She said she did try to take on some of the characteristics of her animal character in the sense of just kind of the way she would stand once in a while or turn her head, but she didn't go overboard with it. Like she didn't bird lady it up on and make it kind of farcical. And Hauer is just a wolf all the way around. He perfectly fits that character. And when there's the scene in the movie where it's at the lake where they've gone through the ice and it's dawn's coming up, and you have a moment in this movie where those two characters can kind of see each other for that second. They say it for this one moment at dawn and dusk where this can happen. And Rutger Hauer lets out a scream that is blood curdling when he loses her again. And you realize he does this every day. Like it just punches you right in the guts, and it's amazing. So I don't think of all the people that I can think of from back in the day who could have done these parts. I'm sure there are people who could have done it justice, but I can't see anybody who could have done it more justice than these two. So I love them in this movie.
I think the only person that could have come close to Pfeiffer's performance would be Mark McKinney as a chicken lady and Kids in the Hall.
I was sure you were going to say Mark Wahlberg because, as we know, he can do no wrong.
Hey, if I was on that plane, anyway.
I turned into a hawk.
I turned into a hawk, and we would not be going down. Anyway, that kind went into
I'm not a chimpanzee.
Yeah.
I'm a hawk.
I'm a hawk. Yeah. Anyway, I know it's hard to believe, but there might have been some things we disliked about this film. And Bill has titled this segment, Give 'em the Bird. Oh, yes, like the middle finger. I was thinking, at first I was like, give him to the birds.
Wait a minute.
And I was like, what?
I was just about to say, how else could you have taken that, Rob? And I love you so much that you had an alternate take on that particular phrase.
It's just how this weird brain works sometimes. It just doesn't always fire exactly as you might think it may. John, why don't you go first on this one?
So I'm going to take issue with kind of both of you in that last segment we did.
Wow.
The Alan Parsons Project soundtrack really has some significant challenges. I think when it was made in
That's a nice thing. Nice way to put it, John.
I want John to insult me. It's so polite.
Nobody could ever do that.
Nah.
The internet begs to differ.
I think like it was made to be something that was modern in 1985 when the movie came out that summer. And as it's aged, it seems like it really puts me in 1980. And that's a strange place to be when you're trying to be put in like the 14th century or something. Mm-hmm. So I think that kind of doesn't work for me. However, something that you guys said earlier kind of brings me around a little bit, right? This is trying to put you into the place of a fairy tale. And so this is a 1980s fairy tale. And I think there are many ways this is a 1980s fairy tale. It's very much a male fantasy. Like there's a beautiful lady who needs saving, and there's love, and there's like that POV shot that makes you try to be in the role of the hero. Like I think that power fantasy is something we see in a lot of 80s macho movies. And this isn't necessarily a macho movie, but it's still got that DNA in it. And so I think that there's some characterizations that are dated in that way, but I agree with you that Michelle Pfeiffer is not the typical damsel in distress. But I challenge our listeners to make their own opinion and to go to the streaming music platform of their choice. Before our recording, I went to iTunes Music, and I was listening to the original soundtrack of Ladyhawke, and oh man, that's a lot of synthesizers. And they tend to be pretty repetitive. So I like some Alan Parsons Project, but I don't think this is their best work.
Well, I can't disagree with you on that. I think we all know where we were when Judas Priest entered synthesizers into their repertoire and put out the song Turbo Lover. And it just didn't hit the same way anymore. So you either love the synth or you hate the synth.
I like some synth. This is just too much of it. It's that way that some 80s stuff it just doesn't hold up, right?
Fair.
I think you're exactly right. I know my vibe that I got from it was it brought me like memories of Flash Gordon. You know, bringing Queen in to do the soundtrack for Flash Gordon was amazing and incredible. And it worked because it was an over-the-top, what's happening to Robs?
Flash Gordon.
Yeah, DJ Flash Gordon.
You'll have to turn into the video feed, everyone, on our YouTube channel to see this.
Yeah. Rob's just completely freaked me out here live on camera. But and it made my brain draw a comparison between the two, and that's where Ladyhawke was lacking for me, because if that's what you were trying to do, it doesn't hit the punch of a movie like that, but it's also not trying to be that movie. So it's almost low-key the effect of Queen and Flash Gordon that you're kind of going for, and it does hit that way, but it doesn't. And it's divisive even in my own brain, because I can't really figure out whether I hate it or I like it.
And I guess there's quotes from Richard Donner being like, no, you don't understand my vision. Like, this must be the way we do this.
Yeah, he was dead set, this is how we're going to do it, and there were no options. So good for him for sticking with it.
That's so true. I mean, what's Richard Donner's book? Like, you're the director, figure it out. Like that's his autobiography or whatever. Yeah. But like, there is a little bit to that. Like, the studios want you to do your thing and don't want to be bothered with anything like more money. But also, when they hand you the keys to the vehicle, they want you to bring it back with a full tank of gas, right? Like,
right.
Well, sometimes you're quarter empty, and this might be the Alan Parsons Project on it. I don't know where I was going with that metaphor, but what I will say is something I disliked about this film, and it kind of goes in with what you were saying, John, about, you know, the POV of it all. Like, only boys are going to see this movie, so we must put it from that male gaze sort of thing, even though it's called Ladyhawke and Michelle Pfeiffer is the biggest thing on the cover of this box. When they're towards the end of the film and we don't know that there's a solution to, like, we know that, like, the curse can be broken if there's a time where they can both be up and it's not day or night. But it doesn't seem like that's going to be possible. So Navarre is going to go in and kill the bishop and just be like, hey, we're just going to kill him. I hate him. But he tells, what's his name? Imperius, if I don't succeed in the bells ring, you should just kill Isabeau. You should kill Michelle Pfeiffer. And I kind of, did I miss something? Like, if I lose and I don't kill the bishop, she should also die. And I just don't feel like that's necessarily his decision to make. They could wait another 12 hours and then say, like, hey, is this what you want to have happen, Michelle Pfeiffer?
Yeah, it's a plot point of unnecessary importance. It's just a stressor that's added in a ticking clock at the end of the movie that really, you're right, Rob, it doesn't need to be there. If he dies and she changes back, they could tell her what happened, and then she could decide what she wants to do. Or
give us 5 more minutes of film in another scene where she also is like, if he's dead, I have no reason to live, or something, you know?
Yeah, we've sat through Matthew Broderick and his fake messages back and forth between these two. It would have been interesting if he'd had to relay that message for real.
Yeah,
you know, and not make up some stuff that's kind of just making everybody feel happy and go with that. So yeah, it's a point that really, really falls right on its face there, right at the end in logic terms for me too.
Yeah. Well, what else did you, Bill? I can't imagine you disliked anything. Did you have to give the bird?
No, we're done. We're good.
Okay, great.
No,
well,
just
that's
kidding.
all.
No, I'm going to give the bird to the pacing of this movie. And we have talked about this in similar movies in the past. This movie is 2 hours and 4 minutes long, and it feels like it. And not in a good way in that sense. It feels like we're traveling in a very small circle in a place that's not very far away, and it's a lot of padding. And I think this movie gets super high credits for its locations, for its scenery, for the way it's shot. Agreed. Across the board, I agree. But I don't need to marinate in that breathtaking scenery for that long. This doesn't feel like a quest. This just feels like kind of killing time to try and go about 10 miles. And I don't like that part of it. If this movie was a tight 145 to 135, I think that would have helped it, because even the end of the movie is when you're finally to the castle, which is not that hard to get to. They've gone back and forth to it twice. Alfred Molina's been there like 4 times in the movie. Like, I don't know why they're taking so damn long to get over here. And Rutger Hauer shows up. Like, he's a one man, and you're waiting for this kind of like, he's one guy. How's he going to get through all of this stuff? And he just kind of does. And it's not that big a deal. He's like, you know, hey, I might be your boss again if I kill this guy. And they're like, all right, whatever. You go on in and give it a shot. And the fight is good, but the fight is also stretched out. Everything just is too long.
Yeah.
And almost too much explanation for the things that do happen. And I know they're showcasing some things. They showcase Broderick in this movie, and he's got a lot of moments, a lot of monologues, a lot of that stuff. Could have cut some of that out. It's just, for a story that is really not that complicated and doesn't have that many points, I think you kind of need to sell that journey and have points on that journey that make the movie exciting, the obstacles to overcome. Like the scene where they go through the ice, the unexpected things that happen. Those are good things. Yeah, injuries, things you have to deal with, and so on and so forth. But they're just kind of dotted out so far that you're just kind of moving along going, oh, okay, well, I guess we're just going to look at this beautiful scenery, and every once in a while this incredibly awful day for night shots that we get, which, God love you, movie makers, but ooh,
I love the blue.
It's
a little Star Trek One. I hear you there. I had that exact same feeling when I guess it's Captain Marquet is delivering an important message to the bishop, and okay, we're going through this gate, and then we're going through this gate, and then we're kind of going around the corner, and we're going up this like he's going, like, you have to show the entire castle, and every foot that he travels has to be recorded. And Yeah, no.
There is probably, 35 minutes of this movie that is just John Wood walking and looking and saying nothing.
He does it really good, though.
He's great at it. But holy moly. Like, dude, there's no villain speech at the end or anything. It's just kind of like, it's that
it's the 10-second
upset look.
Oh, yeah. It's the 10-second Rockford Files establishing shots.
Yeah.
You know?
Only much, much longer.
We don't need to explain that the bad guy is bad. He's just really bad.
And I have a thought about the bad guy being bad, but I'll save it for my Five Nights for $1.
Ooh.
Bill, what do we have next, though? Because we still have one more segment before we rate this thing.
We do. We have one more section of joy. I have called this Medieval Upheaval. And this is where we pick out some amusing moments of the movie. It just had to amuse you for one reason or another, good or bad, right or wrong. What did you see that hopefully probably made you laugh or made you go, WTF, what's up with that? So, yeah, and I'm going to go first on this one because this is bursting inside me since the moment it happened. This is, of course, medievalish movie. Understood. Donner said his point. This is not a medieval movie. And if the Alan Parsons Project didn't sell it for you, I present to you the Bishop's Soldiers because there are a ton of these numbnuts in this movie. And they're not very good at their job, but most of them have perms. And last I checked, perms were not a big thing back in medieval times one way or the other. Rutger Hauer's got this tremendous, just spiked, short, yellow cut tight on his head. Alfred Molina's got this crazy sort of half bob shooting off in every direction sort of thing, which is great. Looks like he cut it with a knife. And the rest of them look like they just rolled out of the salon. They've got tight curls. They got a nice volume going on. Something that surely that helmet would destroy at a moment's notice. But nah, they're looking sharp, everybody. And I laughed right at the TV the first time I got a good look at one, and it just kept going. So it was amazing. So perms all around, everybody.
Well, when you don't have many lines, you got to stand out somehow. They just all looked at each other like, okay, who told they were getting a perm? And then it leaked, telephone, everyone decided to go, oh, I'm going to get a perm if he's getting a perm. God. Well, I love that, Bill, and I love your keen eye for fashionable details. My amusing moment is not necessarily at the expense of the film, but I loved how they did it, and it made me chuckle. And that is, there's the very gut-wrenching epic scene where you think Isabeau is going to perish by falling off of that cliff. And as she's falling, the tallest cliff ever, potentially, the sun comes up and she turns into the bird, and we get that perfect... It's amusing because it's a silly scene, her screaming into a bird calling, and then we see the bird flying away. But it's also amusing because you could look at an inexperienced director or studio head now saying like, no, we need to use computers to show her turning into the bird. And we just didn't have that technology then. And we weren't going to do some sort of weird animation to represent that. So we just got like this, transition, her eye, bird eye, then bird soaring as the screams happen. And that told us everything we needed to know. It was a little silly and amusing, but it's also just, you know what I'm talking about? You just know if this movie were remade that we would have this Animorphs situation where she would, ooh, my arms turn into wings, and there it is. And so that made me chuckle, thinking of how much worse it could have been.
Oh, I'm with you, Rob. It could have been a lot worse, but I take great umbrage with the term cliff. Because that ain't no cliff that they fall off of. That soldier that goes over the side, he hits the ground in about 1.2 seconds, and she falls for a good 4 minutes.
Yeah.
Off what is about a 15-foot drop of shore. I fell in the yard the other day, and I fell farther than she did.
Well, it's that 15-foot deck you have, Bill.
We don't see it really. Maybe when she changes, she floats.
You know what? It's movie magic and our imaginations. That's all we need.
Headcanon saves the day once again.
Well, John, what's your medieval upheaval?
So towards the beginning of the film, as we meet Gaston, he's escaped from prison, and he's like pickpocketed a guy, and he's had a couple conversations with God, but he's finally like reached safety, which is like this tavern way outside of where he's been held, and he orders up a drink and one for everybody in the place, and discovers that all those guys with perms are there to get him, and they sick him on him. And there's just this lovely part of this chase scene where he's like running under tables, and there's, I guess, a trellis over the exterior of this tavern, beer garden, whatever. And they're like sticking swords up in the trellis, and these like guys with perms, I think whatever medieval perm technology has like permeated their brains, and they like cannot, like the coordination just isn't there to be able to stab him. And I was just floored. Like, how can you not skewer this guy, right? But again, everything in this movie is about being skewered, right? Like in that scene you were referring to on top of the tower where she's fallen over there, he's trying to skewer him through the trap door. Everybody is like stabbed for murder in this. And I want to say it must be like some kind of tapping into a body horror thing, or I wonder if it has like a phallic element to it. I don't know.
We should talk to our college psychology teachers and let us know what they think.
I agree with you, John. It was hard not to hear the Benny Hill theme run through my head as they showed off. He's the mouse. He can go everywhere. I was like, I get it. That's cool. But yeah, you're right. You guys can't stick a fork through a 4.5-foot trellis. 8 of you. Can't get this one guy standing right above you. Okay. Good job.
Well, this has been great, but Bill, we have one more thing to do.
Oh, man.
What's that, Rob? I can't even imagine what you could be talking about. Are we going to turn into animals and fly away? Is that the end of the show?
That's our big thing. We were saving it for 2024, but we're going to talk about it now. No, Bill, it's Five Nights for $1. We got to rate this thing.
Oh, that's right. We are contractually obligated to do this bit, aren't we?
Yes. But we should remind people what that means.
Well, that means we pretend that it's back in the video store days. If you went in there, you might see a rack up in the front, somewhere in the back, off to the side, might have a sign on it that says something like 5 nights for $1, and there'd be a bunch of movies there, and you could take your dollar, throw it down, and you could keep those movies for up to 5 nights if you wanted to. Just depends on what you wanted to do. So we take each one of these movies by itself. We compare it to nothing else at all, nothing in series, no sequels, no nothing. You've just gone into the store. You've found your copy of Ladyhawke, which thankfully has the short version on the back of it. You've read it. You've decided this is for me. You go, you've thrown down your buck. You've taken it home. You've watched the movie. The big question is, how many of those 5 nights are you going to keep your movie for? How many out of those 5 are you going to keep Ladyhawke? How about you go first, Rob, and we'll save our guest for last.
Okay, well, I'm going to be honest with you guys. I thought about what I wanted to talk about for 5 nights for $1, but I hadn't yet settled on how many nights. You know, sometimes I'll go into this going, no, this is definitely a 3-night movie, or this is definitely a 5-night movie. And I'm not sure. And I'm teetering. But what I will say is, there's a lot of this movie that I really enjoy in terms of like world building, visually, storytelling. It is extremely my stuff in that. Like, it scratches that itch for a fantasy sort of film. The things that I don't really like are stuff we've noted before. It's a little long. There's some pacing issues that could have been fixed with like a few just minor tweaks. Now I understand movie making. You don't always get the luxury to be like, oh, here's the final project. Let's go back and actually add a little more of this, that, and the other. Sometimes that's allowed. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes when you do that, you make a worse product. So like for what it is, we've got an enjoyable story and a fun movie. But what I would have really liked to see more of is this evil bishop. And like they just say that like he cursed them with a satanic curse, but he's a Catholic bishop. Now, there's a lot of stories out there where like a high religious leader is actually like an evil person, and I think that just goes to show you like just the corruptness of organized religion and how that creeps into stories and yada yada yada. But in this story in particular, it would have been really cool to know why the villain is a villain, not just like, I liked her too, so you're cursed. Like, I want to see like more than that, right? And maybe we don't need what do you call it? A reboot of Ladyhawke or a remake of Ladyhawke, but maybe we need a Ladyhawke prequel. That maybe we don't need that, I should say, but I would love to get a little bit more information. Hey, and maybe that's in like the ancient story that we talked about on the longer back of the box. But for all of these things, I think that I'm gonna keep Ladyhawke for 3 nights. I think it is a 3-night movie because I think I'd probably watch it again, and then I would probably go back and look at some of these scenes and just watch the fun stuff. So I'm going to give Ladyhawke 3. How about you, Bill?
Well, this is going to be fun because it's going to be one of those things where I go a little sideways on my rating. Yeah. I agree with pretty much everything you've said, Rob. Although I guess if they did a movie based before this, would it be a Screequel?
Oh, Lord.
I sat on that for a good 5 minutes. I had to get it out. But yeah, this is a good movie, but it's one of those movies that's good, but not in continuous rotation. It's got a lot of fun stuff in it, but it's got all the things that we've mentioned, the pacing and some of the story issues. So I would keep my cassette of Ladyhawke for a good 4 nights. But the thing is, I'm not sure I'd watch it again before I took it back. It's one of those movies, like I've said before, that sits with me. It's something that resonates, and I like enough of it that I will watch it again. But I'm not sure I would watch it again that week, but I would hold on to it and think about watching it again. And I might watch it again in those 4 nights. And odds are pretty good that I would at least put it back in and watch the ending of the movie again, because I got a real big love for Rutger Hauer, and it can't go wrong. And probably based on him alone in this movie, I'm fairly certain I would watch it again on the 4th day, and then I would take it back. But I guarantee you, I would be going back again at some other point and renting it again. It's just one of those movies that is going to sit for a while. Your one sitting will let you absorb it, and then just like the memory I've had all these years, something's going to come up and you're going to go, oh, I feel like watching that again. It is a rewatchable movie. It's just not one of those movies that you can just crank out night after night after night because it's so over the top. It's amazing, and it's got a sound and a look and a feel all of its own, and it's got swordplay and magic and all the things there. But I also agree with you, Rob. John Woods Bishop is not a Thulsa Doom.
Yeah.
He's not a villain that is compelling. He's done a compelling thing. Why this is the only thing he could do, apparently, why he can't shoot fireballs out of his hand or put another curse on somebody, never explained. It's never understood. And that part leaves me wanting. So why he's kind of impotent at the end of the movie and throughout. Like, he relies on everybody else to do his work, and that makes me not really feel like there's going to be a big showdown, which is why the main showdown is not with him. It's with Alfred Molina Cesar and Rutger Hauer. So he's a big boss, but I agree with you. There's some things that would be nice to know why this is the way it is. Could he only have done it once? Did he sell his soul for this one shot to piss everybody off? Knowing that would have helped. And because it's not really a big... And maybe it is a little bit like Flash Gordon at the end of that movie, where the hero and the villain don't really fight. There's an ending, but it's not really the one you were looking for, so it kind of tweaks it right there at the end. So yeah, I'm going to stick with my 4 nights with the option to possibly watch the movie twice because I love the character so much. How about you, John?
Yeah, John, you threw this down. You got to let us know.
I got to tell you, if it was 12-year-old me, I'd be racking up the late fees because let me tell you, I would just be watching this again and again and again. As somebody who has matured a little bit beyond that spot, I think I have to agree with Rob's. I give it 4 nights. The thing that I found about this is, because I wanted to do my homework for this prestigious podcast,
of course,
I watched multiple times, and I found that as I watched again and again, I liked it more, and they did pick up little things. At one point, I turned on the subtitles because the names are a little bit unusual and hard to read. So that helped me. At the beginning, the reason why they're looking for him is because they want to hang him. And I'm used to being a modern viewer where I'm a little bit distracted on my phone when I'm watching something on my TV. And I really liked that it rewards. It has some subtlety to it in places. And honestly, I'm looking forward to watching it again to see if I can pick up some more of those pieces. It is long though. I feel like my attention wanes a little bit in certain places, so maybe I need to watch half the movie, go walk the dog, and then watch the other half of the movie so that I can have some more attention span.
Wonder if your dog's going to turn into something.
Yeah.
My dog is adorable. And the photos, if you look at the Discord, they're on.
Oh, yeah. Bill, you got it.
Adorable pooch.
And those of you who are listening and watching this in the public feed, join the Patreon, get access to the Discord, see these beautiful, beautiful dogs. It's great. John, so 4 nights, right? That's what you said?
Yes, 4, yes.
That's incredible. I'm so glad I watched this film. And I feel that way about most of the episodes. I don't think there's ever been an episode where we watched a movie where I was like, I think we should have just not. Maybe Electra. But I'm still glad we did it. So, because the conversation is what's the best part about this. I would hate to, I know you're a patron, you're a guest. Is there anything before we end today that you would like to bring to people's attention? Where to find you, or just the current Nintendo game you're playing, anything?
Well, I'm looking forward to Mario RPG, which comes out pretty soon. I encourage everybody to check that out. I'd like to send a thanks to a few of the folks in the Discord who make it a fun place to hang out, particularly Winter Newt, Delmonico, Curry Mango, so many more. I can't put everybody down there, but I really do enjoy hanging out in that spot. I guess if you can ping me there, or I'm on Blue Sky if you wanted to try to find me there. But nobody has Blue Sky yet, so ping me on the Discord and I can send you an invite code. I used to be on X and Instagram, but I just don't enjoy those platforms very much anymore. I really like to hang in on Discord.
Yeah, I'm enjoying Discord and Blue Sky myself. This has been a great chat. We're going to have to do it again, John. I love when you can surprise us with something that we may not have been on our list. So let's plan to do another one next year. And Bill, is there anything else you'd like to tell the people before we take off?
Yeah, there is one thing. I've decided that since our guest John is here, and one of our patrons and one of our friends, I think I'm going to use this moment to announce what my series is going to be for next time.
Oh, wow. This is breaking news.
Yep. Yeah, cue the ticker music. So I've given it some thought, and this is something I've wanted to do for a while. I'm calling this next series Girl Power. Ooh. And this is going to be a series of movies with some leading ladies at the head of the line, top of the marquee on these movies. So there's been several of them that I've wanted to watch. There's a few I've watched in the past that I want to bring back up. Not going to say what those are right now, but that is going to be my next series. We're going to pick a bunch of those, and we're going to watch some ladies just rock across the silver screen doing their thing of all kinds of genres. So.
I can't wait to figure out what those films are, Bill, and we can get started, because that'll be top of the new year with a new series from Bill and Rob's. And
we got to get to recording.
Yeah, I know.
And I can't wait.
And,
that sounds awesome.
Lord, Rob, how are we going to top the Rich Little Christmas Carol?
I know, that's true.
Can it be done?
Can it be done? They said it couldn't, but I think it might be able to. Well, until then, I just want to say thanks again to Rob Adler, who always helps with the editing of these podcasts. The money that you give us on Patreon at patreon.com/BillAndRobs goes to him first, and then Bill and I just peck at the pebbles afterwards like a hawk. And
we just ask him to tell us what he's spent his money on.
Yeah, that's all. That's all.
That's how we're part of it.
Yes. And thank you, patrons, and thank you, potential patrons, listening and watching this episode in the public feed. So until next time, this has been Bill and Rob's An Excellent Adventure. Okay.